So let's talk about this money situation. Today is March the 13th, 2026 on a Friday. I hope everybody's doing fantastic, magnificently, and marvelous. I'm running some errands and handling some business and, minding my business too, the best I can. Sometimes, wow, sometimes you just want to, you want to step in and say things and do things. But at the same time, you do need to allow people to suffer their own consequences and allow people to reap what they've sown and, do the best you can to assist without interfering. So when it comes to this money situation, I've been talking about overconsumption and self-indulging and just, being so extreme about it, so extreme. And I know there's so many people that are hoarding money. They're hoarding it. They have it buried here, buried there, saved here, saved there. And they have they have generations upon generations enough money or cash or whatever we're calling it these days to take care of their families, to take care themselves especially, without the need to hoard and hoard and hoard. It's a fallacy to believe that you ought to be hoarding money. If you do not need that money, okay, what I've always been told, and it's true, have at least 6 months to a year worth of savings and, be creative about what that means to you and your family. Okay. And there's a lot of people that are just hoarding money. They don't really need to be saving money because they have everything they need. And I told you, people that are materialistic like that, nothing is ever enough. They need another car, they need another house, and they get pissed off about it when people bring it to their attention. I can care, what can I do about it? But they need to hoard and hoard and hoard and take from other people that could benefit right now until they can get on their feet. And then they start taking care of their own, taking care of their affairs. But they hoard and hoard and hoard money. Like and at the same time, a lot of them that are claiming to have so much money do not. So you have those kind of dynamics going on. The people that are bragging about how much money they have, and the people that brag about the money. There are some that brag about the amount of money they have, and they do not even have it. So you have, you run into that lying and manipulation and deception. But there are people that are hoarding, and they hoard via materialistic stuff. They have all these collective items. They can barely pay their bills. Okay, let's be clear and honest. They can barely pay their bills, but yet they're hoarding these collective items, these collective items or collectors items of stuff. They hoard and hoard and hoard materialistic stuff. And it's like, and I know many women that I've met, and I'm going to talk about the women because that's who I understand and that's who I relate to, that they'll buy clothing and clothing and clothing and clothing. And it will sit in their closets for years after years. Even with my mom, when my mom passed away, there were things in her closet that she never wore. And the same thing with my dad too. They had stuff in their closets that they never wore. The price tag was still on the item. So my point is, and then at some point, and let's get back to the cash. When you're holding onto these dollars, especially the USA dollars, they deteriorate over time. Did you know that? Those dollars deteriorate over time, meaning they become worthless. Actually, they are worthless, but you didn't hear that from me. The US dollar, when I talk about the dollar bills, they do that on purpose. They set them up to where after a while they start losing the color. They become worthless. Okay, I've known so many people, especially if you get it in, if you're storing it in certain places. Certain people will store their money in certain places. Some people used to bury their money. and all this soil and moisture. Over time, that dollar bill or that paper, because that's all it is paper, and we give value to it, by the way, deteriorates and is worthless and blah, blah, blah. And then if you put it in the bank, it's not safe in the bank because, even though these bankers say they can't access your safety deposit box, they're lying. They can. So all I'm saying is based on you and your family, okay, I can guarantee you a lot of you can loosen up a little bit, and that's literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, and relax. Okay, it's not about having so much money sitting. Like someone said this too, and it is so true. This one guy said this. He said, he used to hide his money in places, which is irrelevant to me. I don't need to know. Nobody else needs to know. He used to hide his money. He never would put his money in the bank, and so he would hide it. And after a while, someone kept convincing him that you need to put that money in the bank, man. You need to put money in the bank, man. And so he put the money in the bank, and guess what? They started taking all types of fees away from him, almost punishing him because he was saving his money. They were like punishing him and charging him all these fees and back fees and this and that and the other. So you really, really, really need to be strategic about how you think. Be creative more than anything. That's what's gonna put you over the top. Is being creative about what you do with your resources, your individual resources, your money, your property. Do you need another RV? There's some people that have RVs in their that have been sitting on their property for decades. They talk about taking these long, beautiful trips here and there. They never do because they're taking up so much time, paying for all this stuff. So don't be so offensive when people start just questioning you or allowing you to question yourself. You question yourself about, okay, what are you actually doing? Honestly, what are you doing with your resources? How are your resources going to save you and protect you during these troubling times? Having 3 vehicles when it's just you, or 5 vehicles when it's just you, or how many houses can you stay in? That happened to a lot of people. A lot of exposures happened too, as I said, whereas people were, had all these homes and they thought they were the shit, and those homes were destroyed either via flood, via fire, because nobody was living in them, number one. And, number two is, just hoard. And look, you can do whatever you want, but I know a lot of people are struggling. And I know a lot of people are having some difficulty wondering, what the hell am I going to do with all these vehicles? What am I going to do with all this property? Like, especially in Hawaii. You heard about what's happening in Hawaii, right? So, just be, number one, just be kind and gentle with yourself. Yes, you made some mistakes materialistically, and believing that was going to make you the shit, to have 5 cars, which, 5 houses, and hoarding all this money, burying money, leaving money in the bank so the banks can use it, because that's what they do with your money, that. Just be strategic. Again, be kind and gentle with yourself. No need to be. Let me back this all the way up and then I'll do some work later. Woo! Just keeping myself. I got stuff that I gotta do, situations that I gotta handle, and sometimes it can appear overwhelming, and that's life though. Life, and it's getting dry over here where we are, so even though it's beautiful outside, this dryness is it's going to catch up. So make sure you keep yourself protected. Wear clothing to protect you from the rays of the sun. Anybody sunbathing during these times in 2026 that's like a slow self-harming. And I don't want to say the other words starting with the S. I want to get people all worked up. It's self-harming. That's all I'm saying. It's self-harming to be sunbathing and not taking precautions to protect yourself and and your children and your animals too. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop right now. I got stuff to do, but you know me. I'm gonna come back and share some things. And again, you take what you can from these series of videos I have out there, thousands of them, and you're not going to resonate if you're not ready to resonate. So I wouldn't be so concerned about it. Just be kind and gentle with yourself. Absorb what you can and be realistic. Okay, do you need 10 dresses? I don't know. Do you need 100 pair of shoes? I don't know. I wear the same pair. I think I wear no more than 5 pair of shoes for every occasion. Okay, so it's up to you. And as you know, with my videos, I usually have on the same goddamn sweater, but I do have sweaters stored away just in case. So just be kind of gentle with yourself. Do a inventory, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, and do what's right for you, and that's right for your family. And trust me, I will be back.